This podcast is brought to you by the Prospect Research Institute, a vibrant online learning community providing high-quality educational content, the opportunity to connect with peers, and an outlet for new ideas in the field of nonprofit fundraising research.
There's an ancient proverb that says plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed.
Welcome to Prospect Research Chat Bites, a podcast by and for prospect research professionals. This interview is part of the Career Curious series. I'm Jennifer Filla. Today, I'm talking with Craig Belanger, Assistant Director of Prospect Research at Biola University.
So, Craig, I am so excited to have you here today, especially because you have been at Biola University for 13 years now. And for many of us in the field, or there's a perception in the field that if you'd like to move ahead, if you want to move up the career ladder, you have to move out of the place you are and go to another institution. And in fact, many people travel. They might move from Florida to California to Long Island and back. So I really would love to know what's kept you at Biola all this time. How'd you do it?
Wow. Well, first of all, let me thank you for extending the invitation to talk with you today. I've really enjoyed getting better acquainted with you, Jen, and been looking forward to this. It's an interesting question because I originally came to Biola in pursuit of a master's degree, and after really going at that pretty hard the first year, and only taking classes full time. I think I took 12 or 14 units the first year. And then I had to figure out how am I going to finance this. So I replied to a position posting for research analyst. I thought, well, I don't know anything about fundraising, but I'm pretty good at kind of ferreting things out and researching things. And I had done a fair amount of writing in my education up till that point. So I thought I can take a shot at that. And so during my interview, I told the hiring manager that I was not just considering this a way to complete a master's degree and finance it, but I would consider it as a career option as well. And so what's led now to almost 14 years at Biola has been really a series of things that I can't really ascribe to any particular strategy on my part. There have been a number of things I've done that I think have probably helped me make my case for promotion from time to time. But overall, I'm very happy working here. This is an excellent place to work. It's by far the best employment situation that I've ever had, and I've had the opportunity to work in a variety of fields at I think a fairly large number of organizations over the years, for-profit, nonprofit, in different states, and I've just found Biola to be a very enjoyable place to work. So it would take a pretty special opportunity to persuade me to leave at this point, I think.
So it sounds like you've had a good group of people to work with there. Has that been a constancy, or has leadership changed frequently? What's it been like?
Yes, it's been, advancement, I think, my perception is from maintaining contact with colleagues at a variety of organizations. Advancement is pretty much characterized by high turnover, and Biola certainly isn't exempt from that. But even in the midst of the turnover that we've experienced over the years, we've got really enjoyable, collegial people to work with. And so that really makes coming into work much more enjoyable when the people that you work with are friendly and are just kind to one another and supportive of one another. It really makes the work environment much more pleasant.
It sure does. Couldn't agree more. And I just want to step back. You mentioned you were going for your master's degree at Biola when you stumbled into prospect research. So what was the master's degree? Can we get a little bit of the backstory? What happened prior to Biola?
Well, yeah, I don't know how far back you want to go, but the master's degree is in Christian apologetics. And what attracted me to the program is that it allows you to study in a great variety of fields, archaeology, um, science, philosophy, theology, historical theology. Um, the the electives in the program allow you to even diversify further. So I was able to study comparative religions, for example, um, and I really see myself not so much as a person who is drawn to narrow expertise. I consider myself more of a generalist. So um, having various uh, amount how can I put this? Having a various amount of information, knowledge, and familiarity with a great many things is much more interesting to me because I can more clearly see the connection between things than someone who may have a narrow area of expertise but have that in isolation from other things. If that makes sense.
It does. I've heard this before about being a generalist and how that helps with prospect research.
It's really helped me. I mean, I'm amazed how I've been able to draw from my education and varied employment experience every day in my work here. And I would have never known along the journey that prospect research even existed. It wasn't like I was pursuing a deliberate career path to prepare me for this. But when I got involved in it, I just found myself um, seeing things and either understanding the significance of it or being able to interpret it more quickly or being able to know, oh, well, if let's say someone owns a car dealership, I should be able to go to the National Auto Dealers Association and find information about that. And I knew that because I worked for a short time for the National Auto Dealers Association. So there's all manner of things that just contributed to that kind of broad awareness that has really paid off in this field.
That's a great tidbit too, a source for us.
Well, that's changed over time too, because in the early days of the internet, as you're probably familiar, there were a great many websites where you go to the website and you can search a database, and then over time, as more and more organizations tried to monetize that, they required you had to register with them, and then it went behind a paywall and one thing after another. So information that I could get 7 or 8 years ago pretty easily. Now you pretty much have to buy a membership or something in
Right.
some places to get access to it.
That's true. That's very true. So you mentioned or alluded to how you were able to position yourself for promotions. Did you start off as a solo person, and could you tell us a little bit maybe about one or two of those promotions?
Well, sure. When I came to Biola, um, I was filling a position that was being vacated by someone who had similarly taken the position to finance a master's degree. He was finishing up his master's degree. He was about to graduate in December, and I saw the position opening. I think around the middle to end of November, and applied. And they interviewed me and kind of fast tracked me to get me on board before my predecessor left, so we could have about a week of cross training.
Mm-hmm.
And that went by very quickly. It was kind of like a drink from a fire hose in many ways. Um, and so the position I was filling was a solo research analyst in support of maybe a dozen fundraisers and one or two administrators who carried partial portfolios as well. And there had been, I think, maybe 3 or 4 people in succession in the position before me. So I had initially just an overwhelming amount of requests for information, and I was doing my best to try to scramble and keep up with that. And then gradually, as I asked for help, I would get a student worker, and then eventually got a part-time research analyst, and over time that just gradually changed. And really, the first promotion from research analyst to senior research analyst came about because I'd been monitoring Prospect L and just trying to maintain awareness of what other shops were doing. And so in Prospect L, I would diligently check out job postings because I knew in the job posting, I would see a listing of what resources they used and what qualifications that they were seeking. And it wasn't so much that I was trolling for another job or trying to jump to another organization, but I wanted to see what's everybody else using and what skills and experience are they seeking. And then I would try to develop that. And so over time, I became aware that I was increasingly either qualified or overqualified for positions that were posted for senior research analysts. So I just gathered several of those up and made a meeting with my supervisor and sat down and said, here's the situation. You can see the qualifications for people are looking for, and you write my performance reviews so you can understand how it's going to be very difficult for me to remain if this situation, continues. And my supervisor took that information and went up to human resources and came back, and I was promoted.
Wow.
It happened pretty much that quickly. It didn't all happen in one day, but it was pretty quick. And my supervisor was completely understanding. It was just a question of I had invested in my professional development and put in the time, and in order to be competitive, the university needed to either decide to let me go or promote me, and they did. And second promotion from that to manager of a department came about during a major reorganization and advancement in anticipation of the current capital campaign that we're in. And was interesting because the university advancement leadership had contracted with a fundraising consultant who'd come in and done interviews and pulled some data and prepared reports and so on. And then a large scale reorganization of advancement was underway. And interestingly, I was being recruited at that time by another school and was interviewing with a recruiter from that school when the Great Recession struck. When that hit and took hold, the other school implemented a hiring freeze, and about 2 months later, my supervisor came to me and said that the next person up in our organizational structure wanted to meet with me, and that meeting was basically that individual offering me essentially the same position here that I had been recruited for at another school. So I was able to just accept it here and not need to change my phone extension or contact information.
That's convenient. Very convenient.
Yeah, it really was. So I didn't really connive, for that in any way. There's no deliberate strategy there, other than I had just continued from the time I was promoted to senior research analyst, just tried to do my best work here and support the other people that were relying upon me for information and analysis and so on. And so that opportunity came my way. And at that point, I had one part-time research analyst that I was working with alongside. And there was a grant writer who was working in the same advancement division, but reporting to someone else. And in that reorganization, I was asked to create a department. Prospect Research didn't exist as a departmental entity at Biola prior to that. And at that time, I was asked if I wanted to assume oversight of the grant writer who was interested in coming over. So I did. And the other part-time research analyst was given the choice of either coming over and becoming full-time research or going full-time as systems specialist. And he opted for research. So our department was formed with myself as manager and 2 research analysts, both of whom I knew and had worked with for some time. And so we hit the ground running. We were able to get a lot done pretty quickly.
That's great. So it was really as a result of the consultant coming in and performing that sort of audit and reorganization.
That was very much a catalytic event for us because the consultant was able, I think, to make a compelling compelling case for reorganizing and addressing some of the challenges that had hampered fundraising results here prior to that. And one of those had to do with prospect research and management, because one of the challenges that had just been kind of resistant to change was over many years, long before I came here, portfolios assigned to solicitors had been allowed to just grow unmanageably large.
Yeah.
And so the only way to address getting everyone to just purge that was a consultant from outside coming in and pretty much, I think, forcefully arguing that that would be a necessary step for the university to go to the next level.
It's wonderful when a campaign or, a strong need to fundraise more brings that pressure to bear and really increases your capacity overall. It's a wonderful thing.
Yes, it is.
Well, when it works well.
And I was very thankful too that the supervisor who was presenting me with this opportunity met with me regularly and was asking me, okay, he was laying out the university's plan, saying this is what we're trying to accomplish. It was essentially the university's first comprehensive capital campaign. Up until that point, university leadership had pretty much identified what's the next large fundraising goal or project that we needed to accomplish, and it was more of like a serial campaign. We're raising money for this, and we finished, and we're raising money for that.
Yeah.
So this was a first effort to undertake a comprehensive campaign and offer the university's donors and constituent base a variety of projects to support simultaneously. And so, as that was laid out to me, my supervisor asked me, "So, what do you need? I need to submit a budget for this department we're creating." And so I sat down and I had, again, because I'd been monitoring job postings for many years, was familiar with the tools people were using. I had contacted and gotten demos for many of them. I was familiar with representatives. I had a pretty good idea what prices were. I was able, within just a couple of days, to put together a budget for what our department would need to take the university through this 5-year comprehensive capital campaign. My supervisor took it, and I got everything I asked for. And that's rare, I know. Normally, the mindset is you ask for more than you need and you settle for less because somebody's going to whittle that down. But I got everything I asked for, and it was, I didn't inflate it at all. I said, if this is what you want me to do, this is what I'll need to do it. And they gave it to me. And I was very thankful for that.
Well, and I keep hearing from you how you were prepared. You've stayed prepared through your career. You're staying on top of what other people are doing, continuing your education, getting more skills. You're always ahead of the next step.
Try to be. I can't claim to having always been. I don't know that I'm ahead of the next step as we sit here, but I know I try to think ahead. And I think there's a saying, something to the effect that luck is when opportunity meets preparation.
Right.
And I don't happen to believe in luck, so I very much affirm, that saying that preparation and opportunity, when they come together, usually lead to good things.
Yes, it is a wonderful saying. I'm not sure who the original person was.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
So I was going to ask you how you keep from getting bored because you're at the same institution, but I think you've answered that. You really covered that.
Yeah,
that was great.
I was raised an only child, and so I've learned to entertain myself, from a very early age. I can honestly say there are probably times in my life when I've been bored, but I can't really remember any, because if I have time that I am not obliged to do something, I find something to do. And I love to learn. And so if I have discretionary time at work, I'm either trying to discover a problem I can solve or find a more efficient way to do something or repair something that's broken or something. But I mean, I'm always trying to, innovate or fix or improve something all the time.
And clearly you're spending some time on Prospect L and reading and
I've logged a tremendous amount of hours on Prospect L and am very much indebted to, I could name a great many people individually, and schools that have kind of pioneered posting resources on their websites. I've collected hundreds and hundreds of links over the years to resources, from going to um, websites of universities that have pioneered many of the techniques that we use in prospect research, and they've gathered a great many resources together on their website. And a number of the consultants in the field who started off in prospect research and went on to work in a consultant role. Uh, I could easily name 4 to 6, but I wouldn't want to show favoritism to anybody and exclude someone else. But I've been very much indebted to the work of others who kind of pioneered this field ahead of me.
well, and that leads me to one of the questions I'd like to ask you. What are the top 3 things that have helped you most in your career?
Wow, let's see. Well, it's clearly not wearing expensive suits to work, because you can tell I don't even have a tie on. We dress pretty casually here, and I like that. That's one of the things I enjoy about working with the team here. I think one of them would have to be curiosity. I'm naturally curious, I think. I ask a lot of questions, always have as far as I know, but all through my education, I would be one of those guys that would sit toward the front of the class and ask questions. And then after class dismissed, follow the professor back to his office and ask him more questions and try to learn as much as I could. So when someone asks me to write a memo about something or to prepare a report on something, if I get a little bit of information, I just immediately assess what I have and I ask more questions. Where can I find this? What else do I need to know? What's the significance of that? What's the context of things? And just that curiosity, I think, has really helped. Another one is being self-critical. I don't trust myself, so I know I'll forget things. I'll make mistakes. If I don't watch myself like a hawk, I'll mess something up. So I proofread and check and recheck. And if I have a deadline, I try to prepare something and finish it early, and then do something else, and then come back and read it again before I let it go, because I very much don't want someone else to have to pay a price because I forgot something or was careless or overlooked something. So I think being curious, being self-critical, and then being collaborative, because I enjoy working with others, and I know that if I'm only relying on my own experience or knowledge or skills, the outcome is going to suffer from that in some way. There's an ancient proverb that says plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. And so I know when I can draw on the wisdom and experience and insight and perspective of other people in a common pursuit, the result's going to be much stronger than it would be if I just did it myself. So that's been one of the hallmarks of our team since our department was formed. We have been and continue to be very collaborative. Our offices are cubicles, and we're just steps away from one another. And my team knows I don't have an open door policy because I don't have a door. If they're researching something and they're not sure what it means, or they don't know what's a good resource to find something, I don't want that to stall waiting for them to have access to me. They can just say, hey, Craig, I have a question. and we'd put our heads together and try to figure it out. And if I'm working on something, I ask them to proofread it before I send it, if it's at all possible. But we very much work collaboratively to try to produce a stronger product than we would if we worked independently.
That's great. And when you talk about collaborative work, does that extend beyond your department too? How do you interact with the frontline fundraisers and other departments?
Yeah, the answer is yes. And that's always my mindset. The opportunity varies, though. Uh, at Viola, the decision was made a number of years ago in order to maximize the amount of time that our fundraisers have in the field. They don't even maintain offices on campus. So, trying to think, without exception, with the exception of our vice president and president, all our fundraisers have offices in their homes and none on campus. And so that really limits the ability we have to interact with one another. We're able to use telephone and email, and there are occasional meetings, I'm going to say maybe every 6 to 8 weeks or so, where there's typically very limited interaction because the agenda is so full that there's not that much opportunity to just sit down and brainstorm or collaborate about, gee, we assigned this great prospect to you a couple months ago. How are you doing with, kind of breaking the ice with them? Well, I haven't been able to figure out how to do that yet. That sort of interaction has been difficult for us to achieve in our current structure, but it's very easy within my team because we're, again, steps away from each other for hours at a time. So the kind of like concentric rings, moving outward from a circle, the more removed you become from your teammates physically, geographically, the more limited time you have, the more challenging it is to have that same level of collaboration. And we haven't really solved that yet. Technology can certainly facilitate things like this, video chat we're having today, but we've not so far here within our advancement organization hit upon a good solution for facilitating some aspects of our team's collaboration. We're still trying to find our stride with that.
That's a challenge.
It is. The desire is there. I think in some cases probably more so on our part because we can see indications when our fundraisers are struggling, but we can't always know that they see it. And so that's where we're trying to leverage data visualization software. We're kind of very much early in the effort here, but we're trying to use data visualization to help people who are not that aware of what's going on in our database, that something is happening on a wider scale than they might think, or they may have a good feeling about things because they talked with 2 or 3 people and they all said really positive impressions about something, but then the data may not support that sort of ad hoc impression, and that's where we're trying to utilize some new tools for us to gain a broader perception of things and hopefully just leverage more people pulling together to try to tackle some of these challenges.
It has been so much fun to hear you talk about your job because you really exemplified how varied and fascinating and really gripping the work can be. It's always changing. There's something new all the time to keep you busy. So I can really see why. And if you have supportive leadership and supervisors that care, you can really see how you're staying there for so long. Sounds like a fabulous position.
The challenges, it's hard to even imagine how this could become boring, because every week when I come into work, I have an idea of what some of my top priorities will be. And almost without exception, any given day's emails can completely overturn and change that. And as you know very well, a fundraiser can be trying to get in contact with a top prospect for months, and then suddenly he's available, and now the president has a meeting with him and needs to know what's the situation with this person. We have to pull that together in a short period of time. Or someone gets an idea for an event that hasn't ever existed before, and we have to modify a report in order to pull the information necessary to give to the people that are going to be working the event. There are always new challenges emerging, and that's been one of the things I've tried to do in my career here. Just for a quick example, the memoranda and the reports and the profiles that my predecessor prepared were all devoid of photographs up until I came here. And when I came, I realized that I could readily get photographs of people on the internet and put them into a profile so the person meeting someone at a restaurant would know who they were and be able to, spot them in a crowd at an event. So I was the one that first started putting photographs in memos here. I'm sure you're familiar with this, everybody is now, Google Maps. But before Google Maps, there was a company called Keyhole Technology. I acquired a trial access to Keyhole Technology's satellite imagery before Google bought them and incorporated their imagery into Google Maps. So I was able to put satellite images into reports on real estate property assessments and estimates, and give people maps to somebody's house so they could see if there was a gate at the entrance or if there was a free access to their driveway and that sort of thing. But that was just something where, again, some idle time and exploring and being curious, I found there's something here that we've never used before, and I can come up with a use for it. And I'm free to do that here. It's just a wonderful environment to be able to look for opportunities to innovate and improve things, and that's very much supported here.
That's wonderful. It's great to hear.
It's fun.
So, what advice do you have for researchers in the field or for someone entering the field to pursue a prospect research career?
Wow, let's see. So if someone is interested in the field, I think the first thing I would recommend is try to find someone who's doing it and spend some time with them. There have been a couple of times over the years when someone has reached out to me. Let's say I can think of an example. A gentleman who was working in a library, and he was considering prospect research as a career change. So he reached out to me, and we exchanged some emails, and we got together and had lunch. And he asked me some questions, and I gave him some information. And I think once he was able to explore it to that level and was still interested, then my next advice was to register for Prospect L and join the California Advancement Researchers Association and look at some of the resources that CARA makes available on their website and consider attending a seminar day. And so I think those would be a couple of the first things that I would recommend. And then if someone was interested enough that they wanted to apply for a position, if they had the ability, I would encourage them to consider registering for training and get some introductory training in the field at their own expense. Training such as you offer, frankly, Jen, is very affordable, and that would demonstrate to a prospective employer that an applicant was serious and highly motivated. And I rather imagine an employer would even consider, are there ways we could reimburse the person if that was appropriate? If not, it could certainly lead to a higher initial offer for employment. I know I would highly rate that. If I was hiring someone and they came to me and said, I don't have any prior experience, but I signed up for this course and completed it, I would I'd weigh that very highly in their consideration. So those are a couple ideas,
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
and not really not really intended to be a plug there, beyond the fact that I was very impressed with the training. Sent a new member of my team through that class, as you know, and she enjoyed it and found it to be very helpful. And I reviewed all the materials and was very impressed. So that would be something, if I was talking with someone today that was interested in the field, that would be one of the things I would tell them to consider doing.
I'm so glad you feel that way, Craig. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Sharing your story, sharing examples of things that have happened to you, like your promotions. It's been wonderful to hear.
Well, yeah, I'm happy to do it. You didn't even ask me some of the questions that I thought you might ask, like what was it like in the old days when I started here, and I was coming to work in a wool suit, wearing a cotton shirt and a silk tie, my first day of work, and they showed me to my cubicle, and I sat in my chair, and it was broken, and I fell in the floor.
Oh no!
Yeah, so back in the early days, things were a little shaky at times, but the the payoff was in perseverance, just staying at it, and things gradually improved. And now I've got an outstanding workstation. I and my team have height adjustable stand up workstations, and ergonomic chairs, and dual monitors with adjustable stands. I mean, we're uh, we're sitting pretty right now, but it wasn't that way at the beginning.
So I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing advice is show your worth, prove your worth, and you'll get what you need. A couple of times from you, I've heard this so far. And then I should always ask the question, so are there any questions you think I should ask that I didn't?
It depends. I think if you're fishing for funny stories, then I would imagine if you get a prospect research veteran from many institutions and ask what it was like in the early days. I know I've heard some horror stories from people before where their office was in the basement and dimly lit and damp or something, and it's a profession. I understand prospect research is about 25 years old now, and it's really come a long way in a relatively short period of time. And it's really hard to know how some changes, especially in information security and that sort of thing, how that's going to impact our ability to acquire and access some information. But it's a fascinating field, and it certainly has been the opportunity for me to grow, learn a great many things, and to become acquainted with some super people from all over the world. So I've been very grateful for the ride.
It is amazing. Well, thank you. Until next time.
All right.
That was Craig Belanger, Assistant Director of Prospect Research at Biola University, as part of our Career Curious series. For more prospect research resources, join the Resource Collections community at prospectresearchinstitute.org.